Good afternoon all, prynawn da pawb, and welcome to our webinar this afternoon on Tuesday the 5th of January. I hope that everybody's keeping safe and enjoyed the festivities over the Christmas break. My name's Stephen Williams and I work as the Ysgol coordinator, coordinating the schools in Ceredigion and Powys within the Ysgol project itself. Joining us today in this afternoon's webinar is Gareth Lanagan. He is the strategic lead for Ysgol and he'll be contributing this afternoon towards the end of the webinar. We've also got behind the scenes, we've got Eryl Jones joining us this afternoon, who will be producing the webinar and answering any questions that you pose within the question and answer section. Also joining us this afternoon, we've got Mark Ford from the Welsh Government. He is the professional advisor for pedagogy across Wales and supports many schools in leading pedagogy. So he's going to be contributing to this afternoon's event. And also we've got, well, before the Christmas break, we recorded an interview with a teacher that teaches out of Ysgol Calon, Cymru. And she teaches through the Ysgol project. So during the interview, we just asked a few questions to her about her experiences of delivering sessions online. So we'll be playing that recording later on. So following the announcement yesterday, that pupils will be taught virtually till at least for the next 2 weeks. I think it's vitally important that these kinds of webinars and the information that we share today is important for you to understand, teachers to understand the importance of pedagogy and also planning for teaching live lessons when it comes to delivering lessons to your pupils. So the aims for this webinar this afternoon is to give you, first of all, just a quick little overview of some of the features and some of the elements that are available through Microsoft Teams and Class Notebook that you can use when delivering live sessions or live streaming sessions with your pupils. So we're going to just quickly maybe run 5 to 10 minutes on some of the tools that are available through Teams and Class Notebook. And then the bulk of the actual webinar this afternoon will be looking at the importance of pedagogy and the planning behind or planning for teaching live sessions. Looking at that learning sequence and trying to break down those barriers when you're trying to engage and motivate the pupils when teaching virtually when the pupils are working from home. So this afternoon's session will be recorded. So after this event is finished, we will download the recording itself. We'll quickly edit and then we'll email the recording out to you, and then you can share it then to other colleagues within your school. We also will be emailing any resources that we share with you today. So this PowerPoint and also the PowerPoint that Mark will be sharing, we will be emailing it to you following this event. So like I mentioned, Gareth and myself, we work within the Ysgol project. So here are our contact details. We've also got Helen Meredith, who supports the schools that have engaged with the Ysgol project up in North Wales. So if you have got any questions regarding the Ysgol project, then please do get in contact with us and we'll endeavour to try to answer your questions. We do have a Twitter site, a Twitter page. We have a YouTube channel. So then please do engage with the project itself using either our Twitter handle, or you can search for Ysgol on YouTube and our channel will appear. So again, like I mentioned, we've got 2 guest speakers within this webinar this afternoon, Sarah Michael and Mark Ford. And again, I'll introduce them later on during this webinar. Before we move on, I think, again, following yesterday's announcement from Kirsty Williams, I think it would be quite important just to reference these documents here, this document, sorry, it's the bilingual document. So the live streaming and video conferencing, safeguarding principles and practices that the Welsh Government have developed in associated with ourselves in Ysgol and also the regions across Wales. I think it's vitally important that you do have just a quick little scan through this document, because it does identify some of the principles, some of the do's, some of the do nots when it comes to providing live streaming sessions to your pupils. So again, if you haven't, like I said, if you haven't had a chance to have a read through this document, it doesn't take too long to read through. I think there are some really vital, important messages that do appear within this document. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just quickly run through some features and elements within Microsoft Teams and Class Notebook that may be useful to you when delivering your live streaming lessons to your pupils. Now, we're going to focus on Teams and Class Notebook just because the Ysgol project, we deliver the teachers deliver the Ysgol sessions through Teams and Class Notebook through Hub. So it's supported by the Welsh Government, and we deliver it. We use Teams and Class Notebook as the vehicle to deliver the sessions. Now, within Teams itself, the first thing that I'm just going to identify and highlight to you is the noise suppression feature that's recently been added to the Teams package as such. So if I click on my profile picture up on the top right hand of the page here, it may be your initials, and click on settings. There are a number of features available within here that may be of interest to you. So if I specifically go to devices and concentrate on this noise suppression feature here. Now, what this allows, well, what this does is that it suppresses any background noise that isn't speech from transferring into your calls. So following yesterday's announcement with pupils attending sessions virtually from home and potentially teachers now teaching from home, this feature may be useful for you as a teacher and for the pupils themselves. Now, it automatically clicks on the auto, so the default is auto. However, if you click on high, that means that if you have, let's say, you've got a noisy dog in your home, or you have you're working from home, your children are at home, and it's got a noisy house, by making sure that you click this high function here within the noise suppression, it will cancel out that background noise and it will not then transfer into your call. So just something to be mindful of when delivering your sessions virtually through Teams. Now, one thing just to note with the noise suppression, you are going to have to, you need to actually select high before you initiate your call. You can't do it during the call itself. So you need to do it before the lesson starts, and also the pupils can do that. So again, if the pupil is working in a home and they've got again a noisy dog, the postman knocks on the door, the dog starts barking. By selecting this high noise suppression, then that will cancel out any background noise. So just something to be mindful of. Now, we're not going to go through this afternoon the functionality on how to create a team. I'm sure many schools, and majority of schools now, have teams set up ready to work with your pupils. However, there are some help videos which I'll share with you in a moment that will support you when you're looking at the functionalities of setting up a team and so forth. Now I'm going to click on this team here, just a test team, and what you'll see here, obviously this is the Teams platform. You've got your channels up on the left hand side here. The general channel is created automatically. You can, as a teacher, create sub-channels. So if you are looking to differentiate your activities for your pupils, you can, if I click on these three dots here, you can create channels, new channels, and then you can make them standard, which means they're accessible to everyone, or you can make them private. And when you make a channel private, obviously you have access to the channel as a teacher, and then you can start adding pupils to that channel. Now you can only add pupils that are already within the team. So you can't add any extra pupils. They have to be within the team before adding them to the private channel. Once you've done that, then obviously you've got an organized grouped area or a differentiated area where the pupils can work within. You as a teacher, then you could potentially facilitate meeting a call where the group of pupils can actually join that call, and then you can go back to your general tab then to have your class call then as such. Okay, so that's just a useful tool to consider. Posts, obviously, conversation. This is your news feed where you can communicate with your pupils. Files up on the top here. This is where you can organize any work that you want to share with your pupils. The class materials folder is a read-only folder, which means that the pupils can only read the documents, so they can't tamper, edit, or accidentally delete any documents. But to create a new, let me go back, to create a new folder, then obviously it's quite easy. You click the new button at the top here, and then you can create new folders, and you can also create new documents here. The upload button, obviously you can upload documents from your laptop. Any documents that you want the pupils to work on, obviously you can upload them within Teams here. Okay, the next tab I'm going to quickly just go through is Class Notebook. Now, I believe that Class Notebook is an untapped tool that many schools and teachers aren't really utilising when it comes to using Teams. And I believe that Teams and Class Notebook or OneNote can work quite well, very efficiently side by side. Now, you can use Class Notebook through Teams. However, it's best, I would say, it's best to open OneNote or open Class Notebook through the app itself, because there's far more functionalities available through the desktop app, and that goes. It's exactly the same with Microsoft Teams as well. Okay, so if I just open up Class Notebook, so this is my Ysgol test Class Notebook, and as you can see up on the top here, we have a collaboration space where you can create a collaborative area where the pupils can work on documents. A content library is where you can start building the content that you're going to deliver during your lesson. Your teacher only area is where you can upload documents where only you as a teacher have access to. And then following the teacher's teacher area, you have the personal student workbooks where they can only access their own personal notebooks. So in essence, it's a physical notebook, but in a virtual form. Okay, and if you are to use Class Notebook as a vehicle or as a tool to deliver sessions and for the pupils to complete sessions, then again I would advise you to advise the pupils to use the desktop app. Now, the pupil folders, again, they split into sections, and you can actually edit these sections or these dividers, as I like to describe them, and the pupils can add new dividers or new sections within their personal workbook area. Now, like I meant, I like to describe OneNote and Class Notebook as a big lever arch folder, where you've got your sections up on the top here, which act as dividers, and then you've got your pages on the left here that go in between your dividers. So you can organize these sections or these dividers entirely up to, well, it's entirely up to you how you want to organize your sections. Now, when it comes to inserting documents into Class Notebook and OneNote for the pupils to complete, again, you will need to decide where you want to store and to save these documents. So if I want the pupils to collaborate on a document, I would do it here. So I'm going to go to the Geography tab or divider, Lesson 2, and then I can go to Insert, and I can attach a file. I can either attach it as a file or as a printout. Now, what a printout means, obviously, it prints each page of that PowerPoint. So that means that the pupils don't need to download the documents. Okay. Now, when you look at insert, you can also insert some audio clips. So if you're maybe potentially wanting to give pupils some instructions, instead of actually having to write them down onto the page, you can actually record the instructions directly onto the page, and then the pupils can listen back to those recordings. Now, the record audio can also be used when providing feedback for the pupils. So again, this is a document. Again, this is Errol's area or personal notebook. He's completed some work. I can provide some feedback either by using the keyboard or I can record some audio, and then I could provide Errol with some oral feedback, which he then will be able to engage with and to listen to and react to. If you're feeling brave enough, you could record a video where you are providing some feedback for the pupils. Now, another way of sharing a document within Class Notebook and OneNote is you can actually, let's say you have a PDF that you use religiously in school, and you would print these off and then you would hand them out to the pupils. Now, what you can do within Adobe is you can actually print this or to copy this directly into the Class Notebook. So if I go to print, so file, print, and I go to select, send to OneNote 2016 and click print. I'll just take a few moments just to flatten and to copy. I should have selected a smaller file. This message appears then on Class Notebook, and what I would need to do then is I would need to click on where I'd like to share that document. So I want to share it within the document. There's the Geography tab, Carbon Cycle, click OK. What you'll notice is that then will be copied. So if I go to Content Library here, Geography, Carbon Cycle, it's been printed off, ready for the pupils to work on. Now, I can also, if I right click on this page here, I can actually push this out. So I've gone through it doing the lesson. I now want the pupils to work on that document. So if I right click on Carbon Cycle, distribute page, and I go to Taflenni Gwaith worksheet, that then will be pushed out. So again, it's like you photocopying this document and handing the documents out to your pupils. So if I go to Gareth's workspace, Taflenni Gwaith, Carbon Cycle, as you can see, that document is there ready for Gareth to work on. Again, he can then edit, he can actually work on this page, and then I, as a teacher, can dip into his work as he's working on it to make sure that he's on track during the lesson itself. Now, if you find that some a pupil's work isn't appearing on the document, on the page itself, or you may find that the pupils can see your work, what I always advise teachers and pupils to do is to sync and to refresh the notebook itself. So to do this, you would right click on the title of the notebook and then click sync this notebook now, and then that will refresh this notebook and it will be updated with the pupils' work, with my work for the pupils, and so on. So there's more things that I could show on Class Notebook. However, I am mindful of the time, and I probably have gone over time, to be honest. Errol, are there any questions? Have any questions popped up regarding Class Notebook within Teams?
No questions about Class Notebook. Some questions about breakout rooms, so on. We've answered those in the chat. So
there we are. Fantastic, brilliant, good. Keep those questions coming in. Again, Gareth and Errol are working in the background, and they'll be answering your questions. Okay, one thing I just wanted to share with you, just to show you how Teams and Class Notebook can work side by side. You can, within Teams, create an assignment and link it to a page within Class Notebook. So I've created an assignment here where I want the pupils to read through the article that I've just shared on Class Notebook, and I want them to summarise the impact of having CO2 within the atmosphere. Now, if I wanted to add that page to this activity, I would click Add Resource, click on Class Notebook, and then find the document that I just shared. So it was in Content Library, in Geography, Carbon Cycle. That's the document I want them to access. If I click Attach, what assignments allows me to do then is to copy that document or that page to the pupil's personal notebook area. So I can decide I want to select Gwaith Cartref, homework, and then the pupils will have their own copy of that article in order to complete the activity. So if I click Done, I click Assign, and then again that assignment then has been pushed will be pushed onto the posts area here in a moment. Here it is. And then also it will appear, so when the pupils view assignment, they would click on the link and they would take them to Class Notebook. So again, it's just a quick example of how Teams and Class Notebook do work side by side. Okay, that's enough for now regarding Class Notebook and Teams. However, you have got our email addresses. If you have got any specific questions regarding the assignments, Teams or Class Notebook or OneNote in general, then please do email us. I'm going to move over now to the recording that we recorded before Christmas of Sarah Michael. Now, Sarah Michael, she teaches out of Ysgol Calon, Cymru, which is in Mid Powys, and she delivers psychology to Ysgol Calon, Cymru, Ysgol Bryhyddgen in Machynlleth, and Ysgol Godre Berwyn in Bala. And she's part of the E-sgol project. And we interviewed her just before Christmas, just to ask her for her opinions on her experience of delivering virtually within E-sgol. Errol, could you please share the video, the recording from Sarah Michael, please? I'd like to welcome Sarah Michael to our webinar this afternoon. Sarah Michael, she teaches in Ysgol Calon, Cymru, but based in Amsterdam, and she teaches psychology to a variety of schools within Powys and up in North Wales. So how are you, Sarah? Are you okay?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Good, excellent. So I'm just going to run through a few questions with you this afternoon. about teaching online, live sessions, virtual learning, and it'd be great to hear about your experiences of teaching online. So the first question I'd like to ask you is, how long have you been teaching virtually through Ysgol?
Through Ysgol since mid-September, when we launched the psychology A-level, so just a couple of months. And previously, only really once before, through necessity, through the pandemic, obviously, with lockdown, teaching Zoom classes for me here. And when I was teaching at Harrow in Bangkok, and Bangkok flooded, we had to move online for a couple of months and teach virtually as well. In a year where actually we got some of the best grades ever. It was really interesting to see how quickly students adapted to it.
So obviously, since you're since September, then, so if we look at the Ysgol project itself, how has your teaching changed since providing live sessions to pupils in Powys and in North Wales?
I think it's been a learning curve. I think there's two parts of it. On the one hand, in terms of planning, nothing really has changed, because you do exactly the same thing. You start with the learning objectives, what you want to achieve for that lesson, and then work backwards and figure out how to get there. And I think that's exactly the same. The outcomes are always going to have to be the same. In terms of my teaching style, again, it's been a learning curve. I think it was difficult at first with some technological problems and microphones, camera, and so on. And what happened was, I think I went back to a state sort of similar to when I first started teaching 14 years ago, where I wanted to fill every moment, and it ended up becoming really didactic. So I'd spend hours preparing these big long PowerPoints, and I would essentially produce a lecture that was 2 hours long for some of the sessions, which was, you know, it's hard for me, no doubt hard for the students to sit and pay attention. And I think as I've become more confident with the technology, it's definitely evolved in that I've just become much freer and more relaxed with it, and given more power to the students, really, and asked them to present different pieces of work. I think when you're teaching online, there's a real difference. I think in the classroom, even though we know that reward and punishment don't particularly work as teachers, we still rely on it quite a lot. Even with sixth form, you know, we might say, oh, I'm going to speak to your tutor or send a message home or something like that. And I think you can't do that virtually. And so you really have to, I think, respect your learners. It feels more like I would imagine adult education to be, because they have to be motivated, and you have to trust that they're going to stay focused. So that for me has been it's been a good experience. You know, I'm really asking them to put the work in and to find the intrinsic motivation rather than trying to push them. And to do that, I think I've spent more time. I might drop them an individual email, sort of to follow up on work that might be missing, or work that's particularly good, because the dynamic is different compared to in a classroom. So I do think that is different. And I've learned some new tech skills, which I now use in the physical classroom too. So things like on OneNote, adding an audio note as feedback. All the research says it's so much more valuable to have verbal feedback than it is to have a written note, especially in my handwriting, which is not legible for anyone. And so, although I got excited at first about, you know, using the pen and adding notes on OneNote, actually to add a quick audio note is much quicker, and I think more effective a lot of the time. So I can really explain a point. And now I do that for my physical classes too. If I set homework, I leave an audio note as feedback. So I think, yeah, there's a few things that I've taken over and now use in my physical lessons too.
Fantastic. So it's great to hear how you had to strip back your virtual teaching as such, really, and not fill those gaps and those silence during the lesson itself, because teaching virtually is different to teaching physically, where you feel that you have to fill in those gaps as such, really. But what you were saying there was you just have to trust your pupils, show them respect, and just by providing them the learning opportunities, you then are giving them the autonomy then to produce their work within their own settings. And also going back to your first point when it comes to planning, where you mentioned learning objectives. Again, that is no difference in planning a virtual session to a physical session.
No, I think you know, one thing that I've done maybe is just because for me, at least with the Ysgol sessions, that some of them are 2 hours long and it's a long time. So I think it's about almost planning, you know, chunks of learning rather than trying to make things fit exactly to a lesson time. Because again, we know that attention span isn't going to necessarily hold. So breaking up lessons, having a quizzes or a Kahoot or something like that actually allows the students to engage and be a bit fun as well, is really useful. So I think in terms of planning, there are some things like that I might do. But yeah, generally flipping the lessons a little bit more as well and asking the students to do more of the prep before. So I'm learning as I go to try to make it smarter, I guess, for me too, in terms of planning, because I definitely fell into a trap of spending far too long planning at the beginning, and it was hard work.
You in our little conversation before this recording, you mentioned the SAMR model, and how you've adopted to use that model within your teaching. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that model?
Sure. So the SAMR model, I think I reflect on this quite a bit, because I think when I agreed to and I sort of started teaching the Ysgol program, I thought I'm going to redefine everything and teaching will be transformed. And I think it doesn't have to be, actually. I think a lot of what we do is just straight substitution. So where I might write on the whiteboard in a class or a smart board, when I'm teaching virtually, I've made really good use of the collaboration space. And arguably, actually, it's augmented, because I will write a prompt on the collaboration space and then the students can just populate that with their ideas. And that really works. And I think it's about, I guess for me, the SAMR model is also about trying to work smarter. So using things like Google Forms, which is integrated with Teams. I set the students a piece of work the other day to listen to a 30-minute podcast, which I'd quickly gone through, written a Google form and added the answer choices that it could be, short answers. And so it marked it all for me, which, you know, a little bit of effort in the planning there suddenly made it so much easier for me to see they'd done the work. I knew they had to listen to it. They couldn't get the answers from anywhere else. And the marks just were added already for me. So I think there's a few things like that where actually they told me they enjoyed it too. And suddenly you're not only substituting, but you're modifying slightly and sometimes flipping learning. And puzzle as well is good for that too. So I think it's been really good, and I definitely use more of the tools I've been using virtually, physically now too.
So it's great to hear that you are using them in Amsterdam and also virtually with the pupils in Powys and in North Wales. So there's another question here then. So regarding the Ysgol project itself and teaching virtually, did you have any hesitations prior to starting the actual sessions themselves? And if so, how did you overcome these? Basically, has anything gone wrong and how were these issues solved?
Yes, so many things have gone wrong. I think I was hesitant. I was hesitant about the technology, and it has been a tricky start because I think you mentioned I'm teaching across 4 sites, and so there's 4 classrooms popping up, and inevitably one of our sessions is at lunchtime, so background noise and the microphones within the cameras to work. And I think I was nervous because you know, it was literally you start and you're teaching and you're responsible for that class, and I think I felt that I should be the master of all things to do with OneNote and Teams, and actually that software was totally new to me because I'm used to using Google Classroom and Zoom. And I think I made the mistake of thinking we always presume that teenagers are experts, and actually what I've learned is that they're not, and they need just as much guidance too. And so it was kind of a learning curve for all of us. And so I think as I say at the beginning, I almost went overboard, and I had some worksheets that I imported into OneNote and set as a background. And I said to students, as I'm going through these PowerPoints, you can fill in the worksheets too. And I was really delighted with this. And actually, it didn't really work because everyone likes to take notes differently. Everyone uses different formats, and exactly as it would be for a room full of teachers, you know, I think this sort of trying to force a response doesn't work. So I think I've overcome that by just relaxing more. And with the technology, if you cut out, you know, what I found is that the students are really great. So, you know, they'll send a message on Teams saying, Miss, just having a couple of technical problems, we're on our way. Students who haven't been able to be in have joined from home. And they are really proactive, and it's just about having a dialogue, I think. I think for me, I was also worried about getting to know the students, because obviously that's one of the enjoyable aspects of teaching for me, that you really get to know your class by the time you finished the year. And one of the best things I think I did was at the beginning of the year, I sent them a task where they had to leave a Flipgrid video. And they just had to say a fun fact about themselves, why they wanted to study the subject. And that's been really helpful. Just small facts like, oh, this is a student who loves sports, or, you know, which we can refer back to, because you don't necessarily have the one-to-one chats that you might do at the end of a lesson, just catching a student quickly. So making sure that's open.
You've hit the nail on the head there with lots of little snippets and golden nuggets of ideas there on how to engage with the pupils, to motivate the pupils, and to have that mutual respect as well, which I think is vitally important when you are delivering sessions live over Teams or Google Classroom, is that level of mutual respect. So like I mentioned, you've mentioned lots of little golden nuggets, top tips there. However, I'm going to finish off now by asking, what one top tip would you give to a teacher who's never taught virtually, never delivered a live streaming session, and may be delivering virtually for prolonged periods of time after in January in the spring term?
Don't worry. I've got so many top tips actually. Don't worry. I think maybe don't abandon pen and paper actually. You know, I think there's assumptions that we have to move online with everything, and for me again that was a concern, and you can't move online because the students will still be sitting the exams in person and having to write by hand. So I've done tasks, well, mini assessments where I've told them to shut the laptops and to write by hand and time, and then they just take a photo and upload it to Teams or OneNote. And so I think, and you can mark it easily like that. So I think it's the idea that not to be scared of technology, I suppose, but also not to go overboard with it. Don't establish routines that you can't keep up with. Don't establish unnecessary routines with technology where you're trying to dazzle. Just, you know, the learning outcomes, the objective is exactly the same as it would be in a classroom. And I think if everyone remembers that, and remembers that it's not the end of the world if it cuts off because the internet's bad, or, you know, there's a dog barking in the background, and actually it makes it more human, I think. You know, it's part of the experience. Oh, and finally, ask for feedback. I didn't realize until I asked my students to fill in a quick feedback form that I was going through information way too quickly. And when you're working online, it's hard to gauge because usually in a classroom, students might say, Miss, hang on a second. And they don't tend to do that as much. And so I realized that several students said to me, Miss, please slow down, when I actually asked them directly for feedback. And that's really helpful because you've got to be open to reflect on how it's going. So
I'd like to just thank you once again, Sarah, for taking part in this event that we're hosting to the schools across Wales. Thank you once again. And I hope that your virtual learning journey continues to prosper over the coming months.
Thank you. I think if we try to see it as an opportunity rather than a chore. We'll get through it, and you know, I think there is a lot to be learned from it, and a lot, you know, a lot of ways to grow professionally. So yeah, I'm still very much on that journey, but I'll keep feeding back. But good luck to everyone, and thanks for having me today.
Okay, well, that was a great video there from well, some honest feedback and honest experiences, and from Sarah Michael. Like I mentioned, she actually teaches out of Amsterdam. She lives in Amsterdam, but delivers virtually to schools in Powys and North Wales through Teams and through Hub, which is fantastic. I just wanted to thank those who've been asking questions within the Q&A section. Gareth and myself, we're trying to answer them as quickly as possible, so thank you ever so much. Okay, I'm going to pass you over now to Mark Ford. Now, Mark Ford is obviously, he works for the Welsh Government as the professional advisor for pedagogy, and he specifically leads on the National Pedagogy Project across Wales. So I'll just hand you over to Mark and he'll go through his presentation. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Stephen. Hopefully you can all see my PowerPoint. Although, if I'm honest, I think I could have listened to Sarah for another 10 minutes. I think listening to a practitioner with all that practical advice and how they've interweaved the technology with the understanding of pedagogy and the planning of the learning, I think there's some really, as Stephen said, there's some really good golden nuggets in amongst all that. And I think it's sometimes those golden nuggets that we need to be hearing in these times. I think that, you know, Sarah did talk about the importance of planning, and that's where our understanding of pedagogy clearly sort of kicks in. And yes, we have got the questions of, well, how do I do this? How do I do that? What tools can I use? Once we understand the tools that are there, once we know what we can do with the technology, that is where we need to take that step back and think about the pedagogy and think about how we put things that we do in the classroom, how do we adapt those, and how do we try and make them work within that virtual classroom. And that is the work that we've been doing with the National Pedagogy Project. Whilst the work is predominantly around understanding pedagogy within the context of the new curriculum, a lot of the discussions I've been having with groups of teachers and leaders and people in various organisations has obviously moved to the current situation and had discussions around pedagogy within the context of blended learning and virtual classrooms, and had a discussion with Stephen and Gareth prior to Christmas, and was asked would I come and just share some of the background then of that work. And therefore then I suppose this is not as practical as what we've heard so far, but it is that opportunity as a pause for thought to take a step back and perhaps think about some of the things that we know work in our normal classrooms. Not that we've experienced normal for quite a while now, but things that we do know work in the classroom normally, and reflect on our experiences, reflect on the professional knowledge that we have as teachers and leaders across Wales and across the group here now today, and just start to think about some of those deeper principles that we need to be thinking about once we've got to grips with it. How do I? So in terms of that, we have taken the definition of pedagogy as understanding the interactions and relationships that lead to learning in order to explore teaching practices within the context of the new curriculum. We can just as easily take the last part of that sentence away and replace it with within the context of blended learning, within the context of the virtual classroom. And we always start off with what we know already, and we know that within the classroom situation, we are experienced at developing those positive relationships and developing those productive interactions. And that's at the heart of good learning, those positive relationships that we form between pupils, between ourselves as teachers with the pupils, and the interactions that we sort of encourage and develop, not only with other people in the classroom, but with different resources, and how we sort of create the resources to get the best interactions out of them, and how we sequence those resources. the way we set the classroom up, the way that we arrange the seating, the way that we change groups, these are all things that we do in the classroom situation. Well, how can we capture some of that within the context of the virtual classroom? What can we adapt? What do we need to start doing? What do we need to stop doing in order to try and, you know, get effective learning in the virtual classroom? Predominantly my thinking for this afternoon has been based within the context of the E-sgol project, as opposed to the blended learning work. And I just started to try and think about the E-sgol project and think about the interactions and relationships that occur there, which are different to the normal classroom situation. Because normally, obviously, a learner is in the classroom, they're with their own teacher, within their own school that they're familiar with, they're with classmates around them who they've probably known for, you know, quite a long time, especially if we're talking about A-level, and therefore everything's familiar, and that learning environment already has a certain amount of positive relationship there, and the interactions, there's a history, there's an experience. But obviously, you know, when we think about blended learning, suddenly we've got the home situation, and suddenly the learner is isolated at home. But they're still working with their own teacher, they're still working with potentially and interacting with their own classmates, and therefore, you know, there is a certain relationship and certain interaction there. When I started to think about the E-sgol project, then we've potentially got a different situation, and within that virtual classroom that you set up for the project, then at first the learners are with a teacher they don't know, an unknown teacher in that sense. And how does the teacher then build the interactions and relationships so that that teacher who is unknown becomes, yeah, this is my teacher, even though they're in another school? And in the same way, a student in the E-sgol project we will end up in a random class, in a sense, with learners they've never met before to study A-level with. And it's how does the teacher there develop the interactions and the relationships that lead to that learner feeling, yeah, this is my class, even though they're in another school. And, you know, some of those things which are specific to the E-sgol project then obviously apply to the home learning scenario with blended learning. And yeah, some of that thinking needs to sort of move across and be transferred into both of those. So some of the things that I started to sort of reflect on, and these are things we've been reflecting on with groups of teachers and leaders as we've been exploring pedagogy with blended, within the context of blended learning, are some of these fundamental principles that we can see on the screen here. And as we said, in a normal classroom situation, we've got a wealth of experience as teachers in the strategies we use to build that motivation, empower the learners, making sure that they feel confident and that they feel that they've got the skills to learn, the strategies we use to help them engage with different things and maintain that engagement over time, and perhaps most importantly of all, within the context of blended learning, that interaction and collaboration. And a number of pieces of research around online learning show that motivation and engagement rapidly drop off if there isn't that interaction. So that interaction is a key part of our thinking then as we think about the virtual classroom. And that's easy to do in the classroom, but how do we then adapt and sort of move that thinking into the virtual classroom? Words here you won't have thought about probably for quite a long time if you haven't been in university for a while with a PGC or whatever, but subconsciously a lot of what we do day to day in the class is driven by these models. We do them naturally now. The way we sit down, we wait and plan our learning, we will naturally be using sort of approaches that are underpinned by some of these key things. So I'm not going to dwell on those. The pedagogical principles. We've been thinking out these within the context of the new curriculum, but as you go through, if you look at that list there, you can think about some of those things and think about, well, how do we build those within the context of the virtual classroom? How do we think about, the development of those positive relationships? How do we think about building those powerful connections? And Sarah, only a moment ago, shared some of those golden nuggets that answer some of those. She talked about the concept of leaving the audio note. She talked about the concept of the quizzes, flipping the lessons, the use of Flipgrid videos, and doesn't all have to be digital. And some of those things there, explored a little bit more, align very closely with what we're thinking about in terms of the pedagogical principles. So what Stephen and Gareth particularly wanted me to think about then was the concept of how all that relates to how we sequence the learning. And this is, again, something when we might not even write it down in the normal classroom situation. We might just know the things that we're going to do and the sequences we're going to go through. But perhaps when we're thinking about the virtual classroom, we just need to take that step back and strip it back, as Stephen said earlier, strip it back to the basics and just think about some of the things we would naturally do, think about them a little bit more in terms of how we build up the learning experience within that virtual classroom. And whilst you may not use the same words which are represented on the screen there, you will probably go through that same process as you think about the design of the learning. So, for example, at the start of a topic, you will always set the scene for that topic. You will make the connections. You will help the students to have the buy-in, the reason for doing it, and develop that sort of engagement and motivation for the topic from the start. You will then prepare them for what's to come in some way, perhaps help them to understand how this work links to work that they've done before. Perhaps ask them to think about an activity that will make those links explicit for them. And then they will obviously start to develop their own success criteria for the topic. Then there comes that sequence of learning, which is where they actually meet new material, and that can be through a range of approaches, whether it's through direct teaching, or whether it's through accessing some sort of resource, animation, video, worksheet, or whatever, where they're meeting that new information at the first time, processing that information and making sense of it. And then as a result of that learning, obviously giving some sort of output that demonstrates the learning that's taken place. And during the course of a topic, that little process there might happen a number of times. And then towards the end of the topic, where you ask the learner to review what they've learned, how they've learned it, and support them in developing their own approach to developing their summary of their learning and reviewing their learning over time. And this is where the concepts of spacing and retrieval practice and things like that come in. So as a result of that, then, when we think about that, as I say, in the normal classroom situation, that sequence, we might not even need to consciously think about it, but perhaps when we're doing something new within the virtual classroom, we do need to think about this a little bit more consciously and perhaps think about it in a different way. So some questions that potentially could help us in that thinking: which parts of the sequence need to be included in the live lesson? And which parts can be done outside of the lesson, which is what Sarah was hinting at earlier with the flipping of the lessons. How can live lesson time be used to build relationships and support interaction, boost confidence and maintain motivation? So if you've only got the learners for that hour with you, and as Sarah said, she ended up at first delivering for a big part of that hour, then in the way that I'm doing now, is that really building the relationships and getting the interaction that's needed for effective learning? How much of the live lesson time needs to be spent with individuals, small groups, or the whole class? Which parts of that sequence need teacher introduction, direct teaching? And that will differ for different topics. It won't be one thing for one topic, because you will know within a particular topic the areas that learners find difficult. So you want to focus in on that and have more teacher input. Which parts of the topic could be done by learners interacting actively with learning resources? which parts of the sequence can learners do with themselves, independently or in groups, and then finally, as a teacher, what training support do I need to be able to do what I might want to do as I start to develop my thinking. So once you know what you want to do from a pedagogy perspective, what further tools do you need to sort of find out about and get help on? So I know that was very, very quick and probably a little bit too quick, but hopefully some food for thought there. And obviously, if anybody's interested in getting involved in the national pedagogy work, whether it's around the blended learning or whether it's around the new curriculum, then there was a link at the start of this presentation that you'll be able to access. So thanks, Stephen, thanks, Gareth, and thanks everybody for your time this afternoon.
Thanks, Mark. That was great. So just going to finish off. Apology, we're probably going to slightly run over, but I'll just give sort of 5 or so minutes just looking at some practicalities around sort of live teaching. So we're going to sort of reiterate what's been said similarly beforehand. 2 things are really key here, or 3 things potentially. Simplicity is king. So don't overcomplicate it. Don't think that your first lesson has to be all bells and whistles. Deliver with what you're comfortable with and build that up in time. Timing is really key. Don't think you have to deliver like you would do in a physical setting. And then in terms of the innovation which is coming in here, make sure that you don't have to do use the innovation in a different way to use it physically. But I think where the innovation is key here is to solve some of the issues that we see in a virtual session. So what I'm talking about there are things like questioning. Questioning can become quite hard, especially in a secondary setting. And also the ability to look over the shoulder of the pupil, which maybe you miss in a virtual setting there. So as I was saying earlier, the sort of setup and Mark in his very good presentation alluded to this. Now, this is what you do in a physical setup or a virtual setup. And what we find is the preparing beforehand and preparing is probably the key difference in how you prepare. And given the issues around questioning, probably the preparation of how you're going to question and that you can break those questions down so that you can make sure they're accessible to everyone. And go through that process there. Of the whole element in virtual teaching, I would say this section is your most important for a number of reasons. The first element is that when they're physically in a classroom with you, you have the whole lesson to engage with the pupils and to keep them there. Virtually, this is your shop window to make sure that your pupils are engaging with your session. So it is really key here. So what we found has really worked at a primary level is games and fun elements where pupils are asked to go and get an implement or whatever. Maybe that's not going to work so much in terms of a secondary. What we're doing there is use of things like Kahoot and Mentimeter and maybe Microsoft Forms, where they're anonymously being able to put elements in, and the element on Kahoot, especially of competition, pupils enjoy that. There is what we see in the secondary sort of virtual sessions is peer perception is king, and pupils are worried about being putting their head above the parapet there. So, and what's really important here is this is a process of upskilling for us as staff, but it's also, as Sarah said earlier, it's also for upskilling the pupils. So it's important here that new things that we're introducing and term by term you're just reminding pupils of how virtual sessions work, and then you break that session down. I think it's clearer, more key that they know what's to come. So this is the element, as Mark said, we're making this sort of slightly teacher centric, but this is the point where it does become slightly teacher-centric, this, and the element of collaboration and getting the pupils to engage is really key. When you're doing the questioning, likelihood is, especially at more so primary, they'll answer in person, but in secondary, a lot of that's going through the chat. So two things: make sure you're not seeing the whites of people's eyes. So make sure that you're being specific to ask questions to certain people, and you're planning that, and that's where the planning works. But also the second element of that is that you're giving the time. The pause element has got to be longer to allow pupils to write that in the chat. And the success criteria is really important here. And another element here, given that it is virtually, and sometimes you're not overly you're not as clear as you would be in a physical setup of have they understood, have they grasped it. Sometimes it's a sensible idea to start at a lower level, to cover stuff you've gone before, and then accelerate quicker. And then the other element, which has been mentioned previously about flipped learning, what you want to get to is this thing as quickly as possible. Short, sharp sessions on this, and then allowing the pupils to do tasks is really key. This element here is where we let the pupils do the work. This is where, and don't forget collaboration here. So the use of the collaboration space in OneNote, the use of private channels for pupils to work together here and to collaborate on documents. Those are elements which could really work here. And I know, especially start the lockdown, when we first started doing this, teachers felt that they were working harder than the pupils, and so also have enough work here that your stretch and challenge or your math pupils have enough work. If they finish early, then there's enough work for them to go on, and maybe have little bits where you can bring them back every now and again just to check and to share the model answers with them here. And there is a potential here in that time, if you're available for question, if you are breaking them off into little private channels, that you could do sort of little tutorials, smaller groups with pupils, just to check their understanding and seeing, and there you're likely to get more interactions with those pupils. Again, the finish is key. It's giving the shop window to the next session. Where are you going? How have we done? Making sure that, and the OneNote is really key here, that they can see your work, they can refer back to it, but also when they're doing the work, you can look at their OneNote and check and see what they've understood, how they're getting on, how are they completing things. And again, a bit of sort of fun and sort of Kahoot and Mentimeter and sort of things where because you need those elements to check for understanding. Question is all about that checking for understanding, and you just maybe need to be a little more innovative there. And give them a foresight in terms of where you're going to go. No pupil or very few pupils is going to put their head up a parapet and going, I'm really looking forward to that next lesson. But just give them that little taste of where you can go. And something Mark spoke to me and Stephen about, or Stephen and I about before Christmas, was about that series of lessons where they link together and they can see where they're going and what they're going to do. So we're going to share a video in a bit just to finish off. We are here to ask questions. We are here to answer questions even, and we'll stay at the end to answer anything on the Q&A. Good luck with this term. We will share our contact details. Please ask us any questions, and if there's anything that raises after this, then please let us know, and we can go through it then. Thanks to Mark for all his work, and we really appreciate him coming to present today. Stephen's done a lot of hard work in this session. We're really grateful for him. And then Errol Jones is working in the background, doing all the important stuff. So yeah, really appreciate that. So Stephen's just going to finish off with a video. Good luck for this term. If we can do anything to help, then please get in touch.
Just to echo what Gareth has just mentioned there, here's our contact details. Please get in contact with us if you've got any questions, or Gareth did mention if you want us to create any videos, specific videos on certain elements within Teams or OneNote, Class Notebook, then please do drop us an email. Twitter, follow us on Twitter. We do share lots of little gold nuggets, videos that may support you with your virtual learning, virtual teaching. Our YouTube channel, we do try to update and add videos as often as possible. And the last link at the bottom here is that we have created a Google site where we have added some help guides, some help videos that will support you in delivering your live streaming sessions through Teams and OneNote. So like Gareth did mention, we've got a quick little video here just to outline what E-sgol is all about.
The E-sgol project is a project which is targeted towards post-14 and post-16 students. This is a practical solution to offer a wide range of subjects to all the students that want to study them. So the way that it works is that in each school there will be a pupil setup. So in there will be a screen at the front projecting where the teacher's coming from, and there'll also be a teacher setup. So they'll have a touchscreen canvas where they can write on and project those notes to the pupil. What's important to us is that every pupil classroom gets the same experience.
Mae'r technoleg yn gweithio'n dda iawn. Dwi'n gallu dweud popeth. Wedyn mae 2 sgrin 'da fi. Dwi'n defnyddio un I gweld myfyrwyr, so dwi'n gallu gweld pawb ym mhob stafell, a wedyn dwi'n defnyddio'r canfas mwy neu lai fel bwrdd gwyn, a dwi'n gallu dangos beth dwi eisiau wneud o ran deunyddiau fi arno fe, a hefyd wedyn dwi'n gallu troi hwn bant a mynd draw ar hwn i gweld beth maen nhw'n gwneud. Mae fe'n teimlad wahanol, ond dydy e ddim yn rhywbeth anesedig, mae fe'n rhywbeth sy'n gweithio, mae cyfathrebu yno yn bendant.
One thing, especially for the pupils, all the notes are accessible for them and they can look back at that at any time, and they can go back and look at my notes as well. And even if they're in a different school, I can give them instant feedback for any problems they might be having. So I think that's an advantage for them to be able to see everything in one place.
I feel that Ysgol has got huge potential. Obviously, for schools in rural areas, staff recruitment can be challenging at times. So the fact that we can now ensure that our teachers are able to teach subjects they're really passionate about at A level, by using the Ysgol option, we can safeguard that professional development opportunity for our practitioners.
Schools are always surprised that it's not a hugely costly thing in terms of the equipment. That's something we've looked at as a project. This has got to be a strategy for the next 10 or 15 years, which will change the way that young people, schools and local authorities look at this. And so you're not defined by where you live, you're defined by the subjects you want to do and the effort you want to put into those subjects.
Great. So one final thank you for all that have joined this afternoon. Mark, thank you ever so much for your contribution, and hope you have a great evening.